Welcome to a series that we call The End of Times, where we're going through the book of Revelation verse by verse to try our best to see what it is we can expect to happen in the end times, as well as what it is we should be doing in the end times. And as we've gone through the book of Revelation, just another reminder that it's ridiculous to suggest that you jump in and just grab verses out of Revelation and somehow understand it. It's extremely important you go through it verse by verse, starting with Revelation 1 verse 1. If you haven't done that, I recommend you go back, you watch the other episodes, or read it for yourself to get where we are. But not to say you won't get anything out of this, but you're obviously going to get a lot more out of each episode if you have a full understanding of where we have been up until this point. And where we are is we're in Revelation 14, and I also want to remind you that you can't read Revelation like a book, that when we saw the seals being broken and then the trumpets being blasted, that those trumpets were reining in God's judgment, and now we're seeing the wrath of God being revealed. And these two events, to many degrees, go hand in hand. We're seeing it from the trumpets we saw from the throne room of God, and this we're seeing really more the spiritual realm of the judgment on God, the declarations from angels, that kind of thing. And where we are is we're at a third angel, and I'm just going to pick it up where we left off. The first two angels have already kind of announced what they had to announce. One, that the judgment of God is coming. The other was that Babylon has fallen. And then we get this third angel. We'll pick it up in 14:9. Then a third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, "If anyone worships the beast and his image and receives his mark on his forehead or on his hand, he himself shall also drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out full strength into the cup of his indignation." We spent 2 episodes talking about that, and this is where we left off. "And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb." Now, what this angel is doing is he's giving a warning, essentially saying that, there's a certain group of people, one being those marked by the beast, and the other being the unrighteous, those who have really kind of followed the beast's lead or just denounced God their whole life. And it's real important we understand this fire and brimstone. Now, I want to first and foremost talk about this hellfire preaching. That's not what this is. It's really a desire to fully understand when he says that you'll be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. It's important we understand what that is and why that is taking place. And I believe that there's other places in the Bible that talk about this kind of thing, because we saw Sodom be destroyed, and as Abraham spoke with God personally, he said, if there's 10 people in Sodom that are righteous, would you spare it? And God's response was, if there were 10, I will spare it. So this is not for the righteous. It is for the ungodly. This is not for those of the remnant who have stood up for Jesus Christ. This is for the ungodly, is what this is for. And I believe that we see this moment in Psalm 11 as well. Psalm 11 can be read in several different ways. Many psalms and many prophecies are dual prophetic. And I believe Psalm 11 talks about this moment that we're seeing here in Revelation. So I'm just going to read through Psalm 11. We're going to pick it up in verse 1. "In the Lord I put my trust. How can you say to my soul, flee as a bird to your mountains? For look, the wicked bend their bow. They make ready their arrow in the string, that they may shoot secretly at the upright in heart. If the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do?" Now, you could apply this to end times for sure, because he's saying, multiple times we've talked about when you see things happen, flee. Flee to the mountains. Don't take the time to pack. If you're on the roof, just climb down the ladder and head out. Don't take any time to get ready to leave. Just flee to the mountains. Why? Because the wicked are persecuting the saints. It's a persecution of the saints. Those who stand up for Jesus Christ will be outlaws, and brothers will be turning in brothers, fathers will be turning in sons, sons will be turning in fathers. You will be considered an outlaw if you are standing up for the things of Jesus Christ. So the wicked are literally bending a bow and destroying the foundations of what the righteous stand for. And let's pick it back up, Psalm 11, verse 4. The Lord is in his holy temple. The Lord's throne is in heaven. His eyes behold, his eyelids test the sons of men. The Lord tests the righteous. It's a test. You know, all of Revelation we've read has been in the throne room of God. It has been God in his holy temple, in the throne room of heaven. His eyes are gazing down on on humanity and their salvation, and you're being tested. You're being tested. And we've talked about these tests multiple times throughout this series, and that's what this is. This angel is making a declaration that if you pass the test, this isn't for you, but fire and brimstone are for those who are failing the test. And let's pick it back up in 5. But the wicked and the one who loves violence, his soul hates. Upon the wicked he will rain coals, fire, and brimstone, and a burning wind. This shall be the portion of their cup. And I mean, come on now, we just read about the wine of the wrath of God in the exact same verse, then saying that the punishment is fire and brimstone. Let's pick it up in 7. For the Lord is righteous, he loves righteousness. His countenance beholds the upright. You know, that's really what it's about. It's the warring of the saints, tribulation. That's the definition of tribulation. I kind of just want to quit addressing this idea that the saints won't be here. I mean, that's literally what tribulation is. But it's a warring of the saints. It's this, the saints become outlaws. There's a patience of the saints, which we're also going to, we've talked about, but we're going to hit here a little bit as well. And God is in his holy temple, and he is fully in control. That's why for 3.5 years we will be able to sustain. There's a place in the wilderness. There's warnings of escape, and then this fire and brimstone, this is not for us. There's warnings to get out of Babylon. There's all sorts of warnings to avoid the wrath of God. But this one here in Revelation, the righteous foundation of the righteous will be destroyed. And all that will be left is this leaning on God, this patience of righteousness. But he tests the sons of men. It says his eyes behold, his eyelids test the sons of men. The Lord tests the righteous, but the wicked and the one who loves violence, his soul hates. So what is the product of that? Well, now if we go back to Revelation and read that again, verse 10, he himself shall also drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out full strength into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And I also want to remind you, it was the Gog-Magog war that Ezekiel spoke about. It was this war with Russia and Iran and Israel that we talked about in episode 23, I believe. Also destroyed with fire and brimstone. But what we're seeing here, is it's Judgment Day. It's the Judgment Day that they talk about in Psalm 11, and it's the Judgment Day that Jesus talks about in Matthew 25 and Luke 17. It's Judgment Day that they're talking about here. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. I don't even know how to get my mind around the idea of being tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the Lamb, because it's Judgment Day. He sits on the throne as the judge. He is the God of justice. And this fire and brimstone, we also saw when the bottomless pit was open that the smoke arose like a furnace. And what we're going to see here as we continue in verse 11. And the smoke of their torment ascends forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night, who worship the beast in his image, and whoever receives the mark of his name. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are those who keep the commandment of God and the faith of Jesus. Then I heard a voice from heaven saying to me, "Write, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Yes," says the Spirit, "that they may rest from their labors and their works following them." It's about the warring of the saints, and this is the consequence of turning on the saints. It's, we will prevail for 3.5 years, but there's going to be a point where we will be overcome. Blessed are those who die in the Lord, and we'll come back to these verses. I just wanted to kind of read ahead, because if you think about this for a moment, and I know we just read it, but I'm going to go back to Psalm 11 again, just thinking about those verses we just read. "In the Lord I put my trust," this is the patience of the saints. "How can you say to my soul, flee as a bird to the mountain? For look, the wicked bend their bow. They make ready their arrow on the strings, that they may shoot secretly at the upright in heart. If the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do?" This is the patience of the saints right here. Verse 4. "The Lord is in his holy temple. The Lord's throne is in heaven. His eyes behold, his eyelids test the sons of men. The Lord tests the righteous. But the wicked, the one who loves violence, his soul hates. Upon the wicked he will rain coals, fire and brimstone, and a burning wind. This shall be the portion of their cup. For the Lord is righteous. He loves righteousness. His countenance beholds the upright." It's the patience of the saints. What we're seeing here is we're seeing a declaration by an angel declaring that judgment is coming, and here's what Judgment Day looks like. But be very clear, blessed are those who will die in the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors and their works follow them. It's the warring of the saints. This is a patience of the saints. It's the consequences of not being a part of that remnant and being a part of the world, and the Antichrist happens to be fire and brimstone. As Jesus put it in Matthew 25, everlasting punishment. Love to hear your thoughts on all this. Put in the comments below. If you like this video, click like and subscribe. If you feel called to support this channel with Patreon, that link is also below. But the most important part of this channel is we take prayer requests, so never hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.